Hi, this is The Greatest Story Ever Played. I'm Dan.
I'm Jordan.
And today we're going to be talking about Above the Law, the third episode from The Walking Dead, A New Frontier.
Yeah.
And so our episode begins again with another flashback. This time it's with Javi and Kate, and they're looking for a propane tank in their neighborhoods. They're kind of scavenging supplies, and they kind of are talking and saying, we noticed this propane tank was on a truck, I don't know, a few days ago. It's probably there. If we could get that would be huge for us.
Yep.
And so they get there, and the propane tank is empty. So they're bummed out. Kate is kind of going into a spiral of like, I'm a fuck up, we're a fuck up, we're all going to die, sort of thing. Meanwhile, though, Javi is attacked by a child walker who turns out to be one of Gabe's friends. And so during this struggle, Kate kind of freezes, and then Javi is ultimately able to kill it. Kate says, sorry for freezing, but it was I know that kid. His name was Drew. He was one of Gabe's friends. And so, yeah, I get that. That would be pretty fucked up.
Yeah, that would be very difficult, especially because this is it's not too far after the whatever outbreak started, so it's still probably kind of a shock, to them.
Yeah, I don't think that they've killed very many walkers or anything.
Yeah, especially maybe not one they knew who it was, or used to be. That's probably difficult the first or second time, I assume.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I assume it's always difficult, but yeah, especially at the beginning, because you're still probably have some hope that the world could be normal again or something. But yeah, so not great. But they head back home, and Kate says that they should move on. That they'd been there for I think 2 or 3 months, something like that, at the Garcia home, and David actually hasn't come back either. So since we left him in episode 1 when he went to the hospital with their mom, David hasn't been back since. And I think Kate is kind of let's cut our losses, essentially. This house isn't safe anymore. I think she's pretty spooked by seeing that kid too. So I think she's I think she wants to not be in a spot where she'll see walkers of people she knows, is part of it, which I get that. That makes sense. So that's sort of their situation. Should they move on? When they're talking about this, Gabe and Mariana wake up, and Gabe wants to stay because he's Dad might come back, but Javi and Kate kind of convince him, we do need to go. We've used up a lot of the supplies that are in the neighborhood at this point. We should go and try and find other people, all of that. So they ultimately opt to leave a note for David when they head off.
Yep. And then essentially this is kind of where the flashback ends, and, right back into the middle of the reunion since 3 weeks or 3 months or whatever it is before this event where they all got separated.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So then the game picks back up where the game left off last episode, which was last episode. We arrive at the gates of Richmond, the doors open, and David's there later. What?
Nuts.
Yeah, wild. He's alive. He's actually in charge of the bad guys we were fighting before. So kind of wild. And so you pick up with that going on, and David ends up picking up Kate and takes her to the infirmary to see the doctor, and Gabe follows along. But the rest of the New Frontier say no. The rest, Javi, Trip, Jesus, you guys have to go to quarantine. We've got to interview you, make sure you don't have bites, all that sort of stuff. We don't welcome people into our community immediately. There's a little bit of a in between time frame.
Which seems reasonable, I think. I mean, depending on how they're treated, in the meantime, I think that's actually not the craziest idea.
No, not at all. I felt Trip specifically, and I guess Javi, if you made him be that way, were a little more dramatic about it than they should be. This seems pretty fair to me.
Yeah.
You gotta figure that out. We're not gonna let just anyone into our community. Have you met the people that are alive now? They're not all good. That seems pretty reasonable, actually. But so they arrive, and it's basically a gym locker room that have gates on them. that keep you inside.
Yeah.
And they get there, and Eleanor's already there. So while they're there, they're kind of talking about how to figure it. So you can kind of have them be like, oh, we think the New Frontier is bad. We think they're good. Javi, that's your brother. What do you think about him? Was he a good person before? Do you think he's a good person now? That's sort of the engagement you get into there.
Yeah.
So after that, you have David show up after you're talking a little bit, and he'll walk in during part of your conversation. So depending on how you talk about David, he could be like, oh, you don't trust me, or oh, he's just family, or oh, something positive or negative. But David can end up walking in on something. I said something I think reasonably positive, because I'm not gonna talk shit about people unnecessarily.
Yeah, that was my my thing too, especially if we're still debating on whether or not we want to be in this community. Like, all right, we should try to play it somewhat cool, so we actually know what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So David shows up though, and he says Kate really wanted to see you, so let's go see her. And while you're walking with David, you get to kind of catch up, and it's actually kind of nice, by and large. Of like, he seems happy to see you, you seem happy to see him. There's a part where they try to like fake you out and be like, Gabe told me about it, and it's supposed to make you think that you say, oh, I like Kate, but since I don't, I just didn't say anything. And then David's like, that Mariana died a few days ago, and you're like, she did, your guys killed her. And David's like, those motherfuckers, basically. And he believes you, but he also is like, they're not supposed to be doing that. Like, I didn't tell them to do, like, they're not supposed to just attack people. That's not how we do things, kind of thing. But he tells you to keep quiet about that. Don't tell anyone that you saw his soldiers shooting Mariana, because he'll deal with it on his own. So you find out here that David is one of the kind of 4 people in charge of the New Frontier. And I think basically it seems like everyone's divided into one of those groups, and their leader is allowed to deal with them as they kind of see fit. So David wants to kind of keep that in-house. I'll deal with my people as they are. And you say, okay, cool, I can do that. That's fine. And then he takes you to meet Ava, who is a trusted soldier of his. He's like, I've been with her from the beginning. I wouldn't be alive without her. If you can trust anyone here, you should trust her. She's great, kind of thing.
Yep. Yeah, Ava is pretty cool. I think I like her. She seems reasonable, I guess. Like, not an extreme person either way. And obviously trustworthy.
Mm-hmm.
At least to David so far.
Yeah, I think so. And she was in Clementine's flashback last time, right? Also, she was like the New Frontier person that Clementine met in that bus or whatever.
Yeah, and then we'll see her more.
Right.
Yes.
But so yeah, I feel like all the glimpses we've gotten of her up to this point is she seems reliable. People who we would trust seem to trust her or have like good experiences. So that seems good. So then from here, after talking there and meeting Ava, you go to the doctor. You go to see Kate. And while you're talking with Kate, Kate ends up faking some pain in her side. And it's like, oh my god. And so David and Gabe run off to go get Dr. Langard. And then she says, I'm fine, Javi. Don't worry about it. I just faked that to get them out of the room. I have a bad feeling about this place. Like, I don't like it here. We should leave as soon as we can. Like, I don't want to be here. And you're like, what? And then David, Gabe, and Dr. Langard return. And David sort of catches them in the act of talking. Like, not fully that he's all the way suspicious, but a little bit. He's like, what was that? Kind of thing.
Yeah. So if, at this point, I assume if, you've been kind of flirting with Kate, that you'd be a little bit concerned here, but, again, I don't think either of us did, so we're kind of like, Just talking, whatever.
Right, yeah, I think so. I wonder if they... I guess we'll get there more in the game, but it seems like this episode really pushed that they want you and Kate to be an item and you to feel that way. But because I didn't play that way, some of the tension that's supposed to be there, I'm like, I don't feel that, because... it would definitely be weird if you, took over your brother's wife because you thought he was dead, and then your brother's not, and you're like, totally. That would be weird. But since I didn't do that, I'm like, I mean, I've been with her, but not, dating her or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been keeping your kids alive, dude. Well.
Right.
Yes, kind of.
50%.
Oops. Yeah.
Yeah, and also, that was your guys' fault, so... that's not quite our fault. But they show up. Dr. Langard does either... He kind of confirms Kate's feeling, though, of abdominal injuries like that can have sudden pain, so this isn't weird. So, I don't know. Kate's faking worked out with how reality can be, I guess. But he also says, David, the other leaders of the council, they know my vote's with you. I'm, good with what you want for Javi, because Javi kind of needs to make an impression with the New Frontier for them to be able to stay, is what we're kind of going through. So from here, we go to meet the council. And the council consists of, we've got David, of course. He's kind of head of security. You've got Dr. Langard. He's head of medicine. And then we meet Joan. She seems to be kind of the head leader of the council even. And she is the liaison to the other communities kind of thing. So she's sort of their connection to the outside world. And I think she's also town manager, essentially. And then lastly, you've got Clint, who's agriculture. So he takes care of the food production kind of thing. And so you get there, they sort of pitch you on the town a little bit. Here's what we are. The one thing we really value is honesty. If you can't be honest, you can't trust people, blah, blah, blah. So you get little tests along the way. They show you two things of food and they ask you which one you want. And so you have to not just be like, I like food. You have to be like, all right, I want the one I want, which was like a cake versus some vegetables or something. Kind of thing. But then you ultimately get to the brand that all the members of the New Frontier have, and they say it's crude, but it's a good way to test commitment. If you're willing to get a brand of our community, that does show you're more all in, which I get that. That makes sense, I guess, as a way of kind of testing loyalty.
Yeah, and they don't in here they do say that they don't like the brand, but they say it's a good way to, like you said, test loyalty. But they recognize it's kind of barbaric or stupid.
Yeah, definitely. They're not a cult that's all about their brand or something. They're they're it's kind of a mean, it's useful for what it is, basically. So you kind of go through that section, and then it feels like you almost get to part 2 of the interview, which is they bring Max in, and they say, hey, we heard you guys have issues with one another. Are they resolved? We talked to Max already. We want to make sure things are square. And so they basically put you on a spot where it's can you guys be cool with each other? And, at first it seems yeah, we could. But then Max just basically blames everything on Javi. And
of course.
And is well, they were stealing our gas, and they shot at us, and so then we had to destroy their town. He just blames everything on them and says it in the worst way possible. And so, while you're talking with him, you can try to sort of counter those, we didn't know it was your car, we just found gas, things like that. So, Max is being a bit of a bitch, I would say, for sure.
Yeah, he objectively sucks.
Mm-hmm. And so this ends up leading you to your first main decision in the game, which is, do you honor your brother's request to keep quiet about Mariana? Because in this, Max is we didn't mean to shoot her, they shot at us first, and we happened to hit her. All sorts of shit like that.
Yeah, they shot first and at a kid, so...
Right, yeah. Okay. So did you do what David wanted, or did you blame... What did you do here?
No, I went with or yeah, sorry, what am I trying to say? Yeah, I went against what David said, and it's like, dude, fuck you. Like, there's no way you're getting away with this. Like, I don't care, like, about David's reputation or whatever. Especially after seeing Max and his response, I think initially I would have been like, okay, David, you handle this quietly, whatever. But after all this, it was like, dude, there's no way you can just say all this stuff. Like, fuck you.
Yep.
So yeah, I guess I didn't go with what David said.
Okay, cool. Same thing. I didn't go with what David wanted either, because, I felt like just Max lying so hardcore here. And also, like, they talked so much before this about being like, we're a community of truth. Truth is the most important thing, blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, fuck it, I'm going to say it then. Like,
yeah, if that's the case, here it comes.
Yeah, here it comes. You should punish Max. Like, they're bad. But it doesn't work. It's not good. So 66% of people did what we did. We demanded justice for Mariana's murder. Max, you're bad. All of that stuff. This is what really happened. 34% of people did keep quiet here. However, either way, we get kicked out of the community. So whether we argue here or not, I think if we argue here, right, we just get kicked out because we argue.
Yeah, they're done with it.
Yeah, they're done with it. But I think if you don't argue, then they're like, wow, we can't have someone like that in our community. So you're kind of screwed either way, which is unfortunate. But you get kicked out. So Javi, Tripp, and Jesus get thrown out of Richmond. Eleanor, since she had medical experience, Dr. Langard vouched for her, basically, and was like, she could be my assistant, basically. So
yeah.
So she gets to stay. Gabe and Kate get to stay because they're David's family. But the three of you get kicked out. And so you're outside the walls, and Ava brings you a bag that's got a couple of weapons, including a baseball bat, and a
Yep.
map from David that sort of shows the areas around New Richmond, or around Richmond, that they've cleared. And there's one area that he kind of highlighted that has been cleared, but it hasn't been set up to be used for anything yet. So it should be just like an open warehouse that you guys could go crash there while you kind of figure stuff out, basically.
Yeah, so this is very useful, very helpful.
Yeah, to me, this felt like David was doing his best with what he could.
Yeah.
It seems like if it was up to David, you would be living in Richmond, but because it's not his call only, you gotta go. So it seemed like his hope was kind of, if you can survive long enough, maybe you'll get a round 2 of trying to come in, but I'll try to set you up for success.
Yeah. Yeah, so it seems like David, through this, is trying to, he's actually pretty reasonable, trying to play within the structure of the community and the rules of the community to change it, I guess, from the inside or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it kind of failed, but yeah, he's still pretty good dude so far.
Yep. Yeah, that's how I felt too. So from here, Javi, Tripp, and Jesus are walking to go find this warehouse that David circled. On the way, Javi and Tripp talk about relationships with Kate and Eleanor, respectively. So Tripp's kind of like, so I didn't realize that's what's your brother's wife. Like, is that weird that you date her? And again, not dating her, I'm like, I don't, so shut up. Like,
yeah, it's so weird. Like, I feel like before this, they should have made, I don't know, other people observe things that could have been interpreted as, like, dating, that we, just actually weren't doing anything. I don't know, I can't think of an example. Some kind of conversation they overheard, but it was, not that. But yeah, for Tripp to say this, you're like, dude, what have I done that makes you think that other than talk with her? Just kind of, yeah, it's almost too forced, I think.
Yeah, it's strange. It feels like with a conversation like this, it makes it feel like they shouldn't have made it seem like we have an option with Kate. Like, instead, it should have been like, last episode, like, let's run away together, or I can't wait to run away with you someday, or something. Like, it should have been like options that are both yes, not for us where we could say, cool sport, because there's all the times like before this where you can have a reaction that's basically like saying I'm not reciprocating these feelings, And you and I think, have just done them each time. So it's weird that people could still... I think that was probably a little mess up on their part of building the game. But also, really, this is the gateway for him to talk about Eleanor. Because him and Eleanor used to date. He really likes her, but one day she said, I don't want to date anymore. We're kind of over. And so Tripp's still really loyal to her, still likes her. But she's not into him that way anymore. So that kind of gives you background on their relationship, which I think is cool. But yeah, the Javi Kate part's a little bizarre. But their conversation though is cut short because walkers show up, a whole bunch, and so
yeah, not very cleared,
No, not at all. Jesus and Tripp are fighting some. Javi gets to kill a couple with his baseball bat, which was pretty cool. I think, again, knowing that Javi is a baseball player, you're like, yeah, he can probably really kill it with a bat.
Got some power behind those swings for sure.
Which was awesome. He kills a couple, but there's a point where he gets into a dicey spot where he is almost bitten by a walker, but then Clementine shows up and saves the day and saves him. And it's a nice little reunion. You're like, okay, cool. We're back with Clementine, which was nice.
Yep.
Then from here, Javi and Clementine are talking, and Javi's like, we made it to the New Frontier, and actually my brother David is one of their leaders. He tried to keep us, but got kicked out. But Kate and Eleanor and Gabe are still there. And Clementine's like, oh, David, he's an asshole. That asshole's still alive? I didn't know he's your brother. And you're like, yeah, I didn't know he was alive. But you get a flashback from here of Clementine with the New Frontier. And it's them before Richmond became their settlement. So they're kind of camping essentially out in the middle of nowhere.
And they're also a lot smaller too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, their group's much smaller. It seems like things are a lot more dire. I think it's colder, winter setting in, that sort of stuff. It's not a good scene. And AJ is sick. He's not doing well, and the meds they have are limited. And beforehand, they tell Clementine, you can't use those meds on AJ. That kid's going to die anyway. You need to save those meds for someone who could actually, be saved by them, essentially. And you have Clementine sneak into the infirmary. Dr. Lineguard's high as shit on the bed, asleep, and then wakes up kind of high. And
he's clearly using the meds for not people that need them.
Right. He's not doing well. And you have the meds, and you plan to use them on AJ. But this is where your kind of next decision comes up.
Yeah. So at this point, if you can take the medicine, use it on AJ, obviously, or you can not do it. And the fear here being that if they find out, they could kick Clementine out, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up using the medicine because part of me was like, dude, fuck that. If this doctor's just gonna waste medicine by getting high on it, I'm gonna quote unquote waste it by saving AJ's life. Also didn't buy that it wouldn't work on him. I think that was just an excuse to not save a kid who's useless,
Mm-hmm.
At least in their mind.
Yeah.
So also pro AJ 20 all the way.
Yep.
2000%. So yep. I assume you also did the same thing.
Yep, I also did the same thing. There's no way I think Clementine wouldn't do this. This is this is fully within Clementine. I don't think she'd be convinced not to try to save AJ. The fact that she's been taking care of a baby for a number of years before this, I don't really think there's any time where she'd stop.
Yeah, especially if the medicine's in her hand, something that could really help him.
Right.
You gotta do it.
Yep, gotta do it. Yeah, also, basically everyone did the same thing as us. 85% of people inject AJ with the medicine, 15% don't. But what happens with the 15% that don't is you basically get snuck up on while you have it and you drop it. So you get in trouble for wasting it. Either way.
Yeah.
And so either way, Clementine gets kicked out of the community. So from here, David comes and is a big asshole.
He is a big asshole.
And it's like, how could you be so selfish to waste medicine on a stupid kid who won't live anyway, basically? Like, it's pretty harsh. And Clementine's like, you don't know that. Like, he's here now, basically. And it basically results in that Clementine is kicked out of the community, but they take AJ from her. And they're like, you can't keep him, though. Which is pretty mean, but I can sort of see where they're coming from. Like, I don't know, sending 2 kids off to nowhere might be their death. So I can sort of see what they're thinking, but it's still real mean. And so you kind of have a quick, like, minor option of you can either say goodbye to AJ before you leave, or you can spit in David's face, which I said goodbye to AJ. I feel like that's probably what a lot of people did, because that's more important. I mean, like, fuck David here for sure, but, you know, AJ needs that, like, real goodbye.
Yeah, for sure. It's not worth not doing that for something mean. I mean, it would have been nice if we could do both, but...
Right. Yeah, I would do both if I could, for sure.
Yep.
So you kind of hear that story, and you're like, man, that was a dick move by my brother. Like, sorry you had to do that, Clem. I think I gave Clem a hug here, and was like, I'm sorry that happened. That sucks. Like, and she was like, Clementine kind of reacts to this being like, yeah, AJ was supposed to be the one in my group who didn't die, which you're like, oh, you just feel bad about, like, Lee and Kenny and, like, basically everyone Clementine's ever known. And you're like, man, that sucks that, like, you went so...
It fucking really sucks.
Yeah, you went so far to protect AJ forever, and then finally he got taken away from you, like... which I think put into perspective a little bit of what Clementine's been like. You know, Clementine was pretty hard in the first 2 episodes towards us. And with this in mind, I feel like that makes a lot more sense. I'm like, you've probably truly been on your own since this time. And basically people hasn't worked out for you, so...
Yeah, especially after this with, like... I mean, AJ's obviously not her kid, but essentially...
Right.
She's been raising him like he's her kid. So to have your kid forcibly taken by a group of people, like, yeah, you shouldn't probably trust groups of people that quickly.
Right, yeah. They've only been bad for you, really. Or if they are good people, they just die anyway. So, you know, like, that would be hard. That would be hard. A little tough, for sure. But our group from here, the 4 of them then, make it to the warehouse that David had told them about. And they do manage to get inside as walkers close in. So you get a little fighting, but you ultimately make it inside the warehouse. While you're inside the warehouse, a little bit after, David comes and knocks at the door. And Clementine actually points her gun at the door and says to leave him out there. Which is intense, but I let my brother in. I wasn't going to not do that.
You have to.
Yeah, you have to.
He's obviously there to help.
Right, yeah. He didn't leave us here to screw us. So I let him in, and Jesus disarms Clementine. But then you have, like, a tense moment where, you know, Clementine and David just kind of stare each other down. And David's like, what the hell's she doing here? She's bad news. And Clementine's like, you took my kid and he died. Or whatever, basically. David's like, AJ's not dead. You were right. He did pull through. He was stronger than we thought. and you're like, what? Which was, you know, a big reveal for Clementine. She thought AJ was dead.
Yeah.
David's like, I don't know where he is, but you could talk to Dr. Lingard. We could get you hooked up with AJ. That's fine.
That's pretty. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I felt like all in all, it was like, all right, this is like pretty good overall, and even feels like it showed a little bit better of a side of David than, you know, we just saw him be a shithead in the past, but this seemed pretty cool actually.
Yeah, it seemed. Yeah, well, I'll save some of this for the end, but
okay, cool. Yeah. So you talk there. However, your talking is cut off. You also start to kind of walk around the warehouse, and there's a bunch of shit there. There's like containers, tons of supplies, and some of the containers belong to Prescott. And Tripp's like, what the hell? This is our stuff. And Jesus is like, oh, I recognize these from other communities too. I saw some packages from the kingdom.
The kingdom, yep.
Yeah, which was a cool reference. And David's like, I don't know anything about this. We don't use this warehouse. I don't know why we have this stuff. And he does seem to truly not know. It doesn't seem like he's lying to us, to me.
Yeah, I agreed. Or agree, I guess.
Nice, yeah. Then our group has to hide pretty quick because they hear people. And it's Max, Badger, and Lonnie. And they're there talking about their issues with David, saying that David and Javi suck, basically. And then one of them comments that, I'm so glad I killed Mariana. I would shoot that little girl again if I could.
So fucked up, man.
Yeah, total assholes. And so this, of course, sets David off. So he runs, he disarms Badger, but then Max shoots at him. And so this sort of leads for a free-for-all going. So Max is running away and David goes after him. Clementine and Jesus go after Lonnie. Javi goes after Badger. So we're trying to kind of run all of these people down. And it seemed like they really had like a scatter moment, as people all went different ways. And so I assume it's sort of, well, if one of us gets out, that's good, sort of thought. But you stay with Javi, of course, going after Badger. And you end up in this office with him. You end up fighting each other for a little bit. I think one of you swings at the other one, then another one swings. It results, there's a part where at first Lonnie had a shot, or not Lonnie, Badger had a shotgun.
Or Badger, yeah, sorry.
He had a shotgun, but he dropped it in there, and you had a bat, and I think you swung your bat at him, but then the bat went away. Then there's a point where he's about to swing on you with the bat, but you pick his shotgun up off the ground and you shoot him in the chest. And he goes...
It's pretty gruesome.
Yeah, it's gruesome. His guts are gonna fall out, kind of thing. And so he slumps down and he's like, "You blew my guts out." And then you're
which is really funny.
Yeah, and you're standing above him with your baseball bat, and you get your next decision, which is, are you gonna bash his head in with this baseball bat, or are you just gonna leave him there to let him turn?
Yep.
So what did you do?
I left him to turn, man. So I, part of me is like, well, I want to kill you. I feel like you deserve it, but you also, the worst thing to do is to leave him there to turn and fuck this guy. So I was like, you know what? You can turn. So, I mean, it was just pure evil, I guess, that I did that. It's also pretty foolish because then there's one more walker, but he sucks. I just feel like he didn't deserve a quick death. He deserved to turn.
Yep. Yeah, I don't feel like he deserved a quick death either. I smashed his head in with the baseball bat, but I was definitely just thinking on how I was feeling. I guess I was just going with how I felt, which is I want to smash this dude's head. Rather than choosing, I think you chose the more evil thing, which is what Badger deserves, I would say. But so I just rocked his head.
Rocked it.
Yeah, you hit his head 3 times with the bat, and then Tripp's like, I think that's enough. I think you did it. And you can just keep wailing if you want. I think I hit one more time after Tripp said to stop.
Okay.
But I guess there's also actually a couple. So 67% of people destroyed Badger's skull, so did what I did.
Destroyed it.
33% of people let Badger turn, like you did. I guess there are a couple variations if this interaction goes a little different, where you can make his death a little more slow with the bat, or faster maybe, or I think there's an option where if Conrad's still alive, you can let Conrad shoot him. So it can be a little more varied than the two, but it seems like you have to do the sequence of events perfect to get there, because the amounts that there were 2%. They're really low. So when I wrote the percents down, I just rounded it and excluded them. But I guess there are a couple rare options, but it seems like you have to really play it a very specific way to get them. So
okay. I was pretty content with letting him just die.
No, yeah, I like that. If anyone deserves to be a walker, it's Badger, for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
So then you get downstairs and you see that David subdued Max. They were fighting, and David gets Max on his knees and has a gun pointed at him. And Max says, "This was Joan's idea to raid supplies from other communities. She said we needed them, to, I don't know, survive as a community, and that." She knew you'd never be in on this, David, so she did it behind your back and had us do it. But I'm willing to help you. I'll snitch on her. You can take me back and have me do that. And so this ends up our next decision.
Yeah, so, you can choose to accept that, or you can choose to have him, you could kill him or have David kill him, whatever. So I ended up I let David kill him, personally.
Okay.
But, yeah, I definitely didn't trust him. I feel like the minute we accept your offer and you get back there, you're just going to totally go back on your word because you're a piece of shit, so why would you not?
Yep.
That's my thought. What'd you do?
I killed him myself. So, same thing. I was like, I don't trust you. You've been shifty this whole time. It's better if you're not in the game anymore. You're dead. You're not. You don't get to live, kind of thing. I felt like after their non-remorse about attacking us, I was like, none of these people get to live. I'm gonna kill them all.
Yeah, especially after, I forget which one said it, but yeah, I'd definitely shoot that little girl again. You're like, all right, dude, that's just pure evil.
Yeah, I think that was Badger who said it, who we already killed, but
yeah.
Still, I'm like, you guys were all part of that. You were all fine with it. Sorry, you're all going down. So I just, I don't even know if I let Max finish making his offer. I think I just killed him, right away. I was like, fuck you. You're done.
Nice.
Like you said, though, right, David is also a variation that can kill him. So for this one, 56% of people brought Max back with us, and 44% of people had Max get killed. But I think, again, that's a subsection of, maybe 10% of people did what you did, where David kills...
I just said nothing. I was like, well, I assume David's going to shoot him anyway, so... Right,
where it lets that happen. Versus, for me, I actively just shot him. I was like, you're done.
Yeah.
But
that makes sense. My one thought was, this dude sucks and I hate him, but Mariana was David's kid, and David's holding the gun. I'll let him do... I feel like he deserves the kill shot versus me.
That makes sense. I didn't really think about it that way. I was just, again, I think in my blind rage after killing Badger, I was like, I'm just going to kill all of them.
Yeah.
None of you get to live, sort of feel. So that was where I was at. Bubbles on Twitter, though, wrote in, and they said when the game first came out, 10-year-old me let him live, which I still don't regret. So they did the opposite of us, so less bloodthirsty than we were. Or me, at least.
A 10-year-old, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That was a more mature decision than I made as a early 30-something. So, good job. So from here, though, we walk outside the warehouse, and Clementine and Jesus say that Lonnie got away. Which, side comment, I feel like if anyone's chasing people down, Jesus and Clementine definitely could catch them. But the story definitely needed someone to get away. But I feel like someone getting away from David or Javi would make more sense to me than Clementine and Jesus. No way. No one gets away from them. But
yeah, definitely not.
But Lonnie got away, though. And he's probably headed back to Richmond to warn Joan. So... they're sort of a, we should get back to Richmond fast kind of thing. But Jesus uses this time to condemn Javi for killing Badger brutally, for me at least, and being like, hey, I thought you were a good person, but good people don't smash people's heads in with baseball bats. And I'm like, they do sometimes. Kind of attitude. Did he condemn you too?
No. He didn't. He I think he just decides to leave. He decides just to leave.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
In mine, he also decides to leave. He's like, well, my people are probably dead based on all of this. I have enough info. I'm going to go warn my people. And so Jesus fucks off here, which makes sense. get that. Also, you clearly won our bet from last time, so
What was the bet again?
I think I owe you $1. So
Okay.
I bet that Jesus would be gone at the beginning of the episode, and this is really most of the way through the episode. So
Yep.
you definitely won there. I thought Jesus would be gone much sooner, but because I couldn't remember any of it. So, but Jesus leaves. Makes sense that he's gone. So now you return to Richmond. You take one of their cars that they had got. I think we take Badger's car or whatever. And we make it back to Richmond. And David knows sort of a secret way that will have less security to get us to sneak in. And so when we get there, we decide that we should split up. That'll be the best way to kind of do everything we want and hopefully not get seen. So David is going to go get some allies he has still in Richmond and go confront Joan. Meanwhile, Clementine is going to go to Dr. Lineguard to find out about AJ. And she lets us know that she's just going to leave after that, actually. That, this isn't my thing, but, I'm going to take that car that we drove here. I'm going to get AJ and leave. And we're like, cool, that's fine. You're owed a car. I get it.
Yep, you should probably do that.
Yeah, I felt totally fine with that. And then Javi and Tripp are going to go to the hospital, get Kate, Gabe, and Eleanor. So we head there. And when we get there, Javi talks to Kate. And Kate says that Joan had actually stopped by. And that David has been removed from whatever leadership position he was in. And that basically, you still have a place here even if David doesn't, sort of thing. And Kate says that she wants to leave. She's pushing Javi pretty hard, let's just run away right now. Richmond, David, they're not our responsibility. They're not our problem. It's not our fight. And Gabe hears Kate saying this, and he is on the other end. He wants to stay. He wants to find David and sort of stick with that plan that David had set up with you to do this. So, what did you go with here?
Oh, I for sure stayed with David's plan. I mean, come on, David's my brother. David's Gabe's dad. He's your husband. What the fuck are you thinking?
Yeah.
Kate just seems really selfish. So it just seemed like a really bad plan.
Mm-hmm.
How are we just gonna escape and leave? That's just not one. That's probably not gonna happen, and then two, definitely just can't leave our family like that. It's just dumb.
Yeah, I didn't like her plan either, and yeah, I was like, what? Because she was like, we survived all this time without Richmond, without David. We're better on our own, and you're like, no, you. Yeah, that's.
It sucked.
Yeah,
I feel like the first episode opens with, or once we're out of the flashback, this sucks. We're in a van.
Yeah, it seems like we've just been struggling. So yeah, that was not great. So I did the same thing as you. I stuck with David's plan. I was like, no way. And I think up until this time, David has been largely cool, I would say. Yep. So you're my brother. I'll side with you. It wasn't just he's been a shithead, but he's my brother. It's like. He's been pretty cool, I would say, up to this point. And
minus that flashback.
Yeah.
He's been super great. And that was a long time ago.
Right, yeah. Minus the flashback with Clementine. Yeah, not bad. So, stuck with David's plan. 53% of people did that, including both of us. 47% of people chose to leave with Kate, which I'm surprised by. That's a big difference. Bubbles on Twitter, though, wrote in and said, I trust David, so I went with his plan. And then they made this general comment that I thought was cool, is Season 3 is that season where I can side with each person, such as David, and not Kate. Or presumably vice versa. It's not like Kenny and Lily in Season 1, since I simp Kenny too hard. So, yep, we can agree with that.
Yep.
Team Kenny for sure. Even when Lily was right, it's still hard to agree with her because you're like, I'm Team Kenny. But
yeah, too bad. Always Kenny.
Yeah. But yeah, here I could see that. I could see totally having a playthrough where you do this. If we'd romance Kate the whole time and stuff like that, I could see this being a part where fuck off, David. See ya. I'm gonna bolt. So
pretty grimy.
Yeah, definitely grimy. but I can see how someone could play that way, for sure. So we both went through with what David wanted. So what we do is we go to David's house, we drop Kate and Gabe off there, and then Ava is there, and we go with Ava to confront Joan. And we get there, David and Javi and Ava are there, and then it's Joan, you've got Clint, Dr. Langard, Lonnie, I think there might be a couple randos as well. And we say that Joan has been ordering raids on other communities. That, we found a warehouse full of stuff from places like Prescott or the Kingdom or whatever. And we heard them talking about how they were glad they killed Mariana and, all this shit.
Yeah.
And they kind of are like, oh, that's pretty bad. And so then Joan is like, well, Lonnie, why don't you tell the truth? What's really going on? And Lonnie's like, well, David had us organizing these raids. He said if we got extra stuff for the community that, we'd be really good people for that, blah, 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 that we're family. So Lonnie's super shitty and just lies and reverse Unos it to David. And this ends up in a spot where, everyone's got guns out. They're all yelling at each other. You hear a shot go off and then the screen fades to black. Episode over.
Boom.
So pretty wild. Okay. That's the episode itself. Moving to some general thoughts about it. One thing I really liked about this episode is there were multiple times where I thought I fucked up. Where I made a decision and then immediately I was like, maybe I shouldn't have made that decision. Maybe I should have done a different thing. When I blurted out what happened with Mariana in the beginning. I did that and then we got kicked out and I was like, shit, maybe I should have done that differently. Or, different things along the way. And I would say that that's a spot where Telltale, I would say, is really working. Is if you really question your decision after the fact and you're like, fuck, maybe I should have done the other thing. So I thought this episode really worked in that regard.
Yeah, me too. There's a lot of, I feel like a lot of the decisions they kind of played on your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Like with killing Badger or not, taking Max up on his word or not. Yeah, the thing you just referenced. I guess if you have sided with Kate this whole time, do you sacrifice your relationship with David or do you go with Kate, whatever. I do really think there's a lot of times where they kind of the decisions are very emotional. They're not kind of what do you think is best? It's well, what do you feel? So I thought they did that pretty well too.
Yeah, total.
Yeah, I think one cool thing is you get a lot of David in this episode, and I think they do a really good job of fleshing out his character more. Because you see him obviously in episode 1, and he's super he gets in a fight with you, he blames you for a bunch of stuff. He's kind of in your face and aggressive, and then you get the flashback with Clem, but then you see a bunch of him just being pretty reasonable, pretty loyal, a pretty good leader probably. In the community. Mm-hmm. So I feel like you get a lot of different sides of David, which I think they really fleshed him out really well this episode. It made me actually care about him versus, if they'd done this poorly, I think it would have been easy just to not even care about him at all. I haven't seen you in 3 years, whatever. But they, I think they did a good job with that too.
Yeah, I agree. I ended up thinking David was pretty alright. I would say by the end of this, I would say he's all right and I like him, probably in a similar way to Kenny, in some ways of yeah, he's kind of a shithead and he clearly has an anger problem. He's probably not a great husband, or father, different things like that. But also I felt there was some of that of you're not heavy, you're my brother sort of feel
yeah,
in there where you're yeah, but you're, you gave me a weapon that would be specifically good for me. And
the bat.
The bat, right, yeah. You gave me my super weapon. And you sent me to a place where I could be safe. You want a scheme to be able to keep me in your community. You want me here. You want this to work. There's multiple times through in the episode where when you do what David wants, like us showing up to confront Joan, he's like, you're my brother, I knew I could count on you. Things like that. He really wants it to work out. I think he wants to be equals and be brothers,
Yeah.
on the opposite side, if you fuck it up, he's like, man, I wish I could count on you or something. Like, it's something negative.
Yeah, something that's like, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
Like, oh, damn, that sucks.
Right, exactly. And I think that they really landed that, like you said. I think that if they wouldn't have, like, it would be easy to just leave because you're like, you're right, Kate, this isn't our fight. Or whatever. Like, sure, he's my brother, but we haven't seen him in 3 years, like you said. But instead, it's like, no, I'm in. And right now, I feel like, excluding Clementine, he's probably next up for me for people I'd want to side with.
Yep.
Like, Clementine, of course, gets all loyalty. But, of characters we've met here, I would say David is number 2. More than Kate or Gabe. They're important because they're family, but, I would take David, though. More than Trip, more than Jesus, more than whatever. I would say David is probably my number 2 right now, which I didn't expect.
Yeah, I feel the same way. He's definitely like this episode or this season's version of Kenny. I feel like that was a good comparison.
Yeah, because Kenny, like, if people hate Kenny, you're like, yeah, I get that. That makes sense.
He's flawed for sure.
Right, and so is David, very much so. But I wonder if he's not quote unquote like grown up, but kind of with the apocalypse. Like you said, he does seem to be a leader more than like he seemed to be more of a hothead in some of the flashbacks.
Yeah.
I guess that was a comment Kate made even, is that like he was better at war, so he's probably more at home here, which could be true. Like maybe he has that soldier syndrome kind of thing, and so he can just, I know what to expect, so I'm able to reorient myself better or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that could be very true.
But whatever it is, I mean, he by and large seems all right, and I can even see where he's coming from with the Clementine stuff when he kicked her out and not using the medicine. I understand what he's saying. He was an asshole about it and like all of that stuff, but
yeah, you kind of see his hot-headedness there.
Right.
Like maybe the right call, but really poor execution.
Right, yeah. I feel like it could be fair to be like, sorry, we don't take, if you steal from us ever, you can't be a part of us. Makes sense. That's a pretty reasonable rule. But
yeah,
he was just such a dick about it before he kicked her out. It was like, eh. But yeah, I don't know. All in all, though, I feel like him, definitely up on him. And I hope that this trajectory of liking him continues in the next episodes.
Yeah, same. Well, I'll just go on more.
Cool.
I really like Jesus a lot. I think he's one of my favorite Walking Dead characters in general. And I like that he was in this game, but at the same time it kind of felt, I don't know. It was like an unnecessary shout out.
Mm-hmm.
Like I like their kingdom reference a lot. Like I like knowing that, okay, this kingdom exists in this Walking Dead Telltale universe. Makes me think about, okay, well, where does Richmond fall in with the other communities that we know in the show or whatever? Like, I like that, but I just feel like it was kind of, the only reason they had Jesus in here was for that moment. So it just kind of felt, I don't know, forced. I don't know if it's the right word, but like for him just to be here and then leave, it's kind of like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel that. I think in a similar related way is like last time we talked a bit about the kind of Jesus and Clem errors of like on our last episode of how it didn't make a lot of sense maybe to have them there just because like how could anyone choose anything that's not pro them sort of thing. Yeah. And I thought this episode did that a lot better. I do think they grew there. Like you said, I like that kingdom reference. I thought that was a fun world building thing. Now, like you said, did you need Jesus to say that? Probably not.
Could have just had the boxes in there and then been like, oh, there's stuff from the kingdom here, or just showed you the box and said nothing about it.
Right, or even if you had a made-up Telltale Games character in Jesus' role this whole time. Like if there was just a brand new character who is from, one of those communities. They're from Alexandria, they're from Hilltop, whatever. They're like, oh, I'm Bill, I live in the Hilltop. And you're like, oh, I didn't know there was a community called Hilltop. Whatever. You probably could have just made something up. Like, I don't know that it needed to be Jesus to get that reference. But I liked that reference. I thought that was cool. But then I thought, in that related feeling, I thought they did do a good job of pitting Clementine versus David. And that actually felt tough. Like, I opened the door for David, and I was like, I gotta, there's walkers out there. What do you mean, Clementine? But you did feel some of that tension. You were like, man, David was a huge asshole in that story earlier.
For sure. Objectively.
No, yeah, and you felt that, and, at least I imagine both of us, but, we have that disposition towards Clementine. And so this was a spot where it made us choose against it. We had to, like, I'm sure some people didn't unlock the door for David. I think if you don't do that, then Jesus opens it for him or something.
Yeah.
So, David still gets in there. And I think in that's another spot where David could be like, come on, you left your brother out there? Like, which is fair.
Yeah, super fair.
Yeah. But you get that. But, for us, it was like I had to directly go against Clementine because I was like, I need to open this door. This is David. Like,
yeah.
He's been cool.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so I feel like you felt that tension, actually, because you're like, David, you're my brother, you've seemed pretty cool up until now. Clementine, I really like you, and you told me this shitty thing my brother did in the past, who I know also does do shitty things. Like, he's been shitty to me in the past, too. So, yeah. I thought that was actually a good tension, because up until now, I would want to choose towards David, based on the things we've seen, but I also have that longevity with Clem and all of that, so I thought that part, they actually landed well. So it does feel like they learned a little bit from episode 2 till now. Like, in that development time, they kind of were like, okay, this is how we should do these things that work. Because also, all of the decisions except giving AJ medicine, I thought were more challenging too. So I think they really kind of righted that path here.
Yep, definitely agree. I think overall this episode's really good. I enjoyed it a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. I didn't have any idea what was going to happen in general as it was going, and as things were happening, I was like, shit, what's going to happen next? Did I do the bad thing? Like, when we got kicked out at first, I was like, dang, if I would have done that right, could I have stayed? Like, I wasn't sure. So I thought they did really well here, and I'm excited to see what the next ones bring. Like before, I generally speaking have no idea what's coming, so I'm excited about that.
Yeah. Me too.
Nice. That's all I have. Do you have anything else?
Nope. I'm all good.
Cool. Awesome. Well, all right. That is Above the Law. If you have other thoughts on this episode, definitely send them our way. Would love to keep talking about this episode. I'm really eager to see where this goes. I feel like this episode was such a boost for this, so I'm definitely pumped to see what happens next. But yeah, if you'd like to talk to us on Twitter, our Twitter is @StoryEverPod. Our website's TheGreatestStoryEverPlayed.com. That has links to all of our old episodes, including the previous Walking Dead seasons and Season 4. Those are there. Also links to whatever podcast app you use. That's on there too. If you'd like to support the show financially, you can do that at patreon.com/TheGreatestStoryEverPlayed. There we've got monthly bonus episodes that we do that are topical in nature. So we've talked about things like fantasy football. We talked about our favorite Walking Dead characters. We talked about our favorite franchises in video games, stuff like that. So if that sounds like something you'd want, go check that out. And that's really our episode, and we'll see you next time.
See you.